Hey everybody, this is Nick. I'm gonna give you, this is basically just an overview of the Blender sort of workspace. So this is the new version of Blender 2.8. They've made a ton of changes, so you may see me searching for things periodically. Um, Blender is free and open source 3D modeling and animation software. It's quite powerful. You can get it at blender.org, and I use it a lot for my own projects. So this is just the splash screen. You can change certain settings, like if you like a light interface. I don't really like that. But I'm going to leave these all the way they are, and just click off of this splash screen to reveal a new Blender file. So this main window is, of course, our 3D view. This is where everything in our 3D scene lives. Along the bottom, we have some options for animation, which we may talk about later. On the right, this is similar to the hierarchy panel in Unity. This is basically our list. It's the hierarchy panel, and it's a list of everything in our scene. So we have a camera, a cube, and a light, and I can click on these to show them. Down here is kind of a properties inspector. So I can change the name of objects here. So I could name it box instead or something like that. I'll change it back to cube. I could move things around, rotate them, scale them here, just like in Unity. And there's a lot of other options here that we don't need to get into right away. And you can see there's a lot of other tabs as well. So there's other settings and kind of editors in here that we'll talk about as we go along. Okay, so the first thing is, how do we actually look around in this scene? So if I just click the center mouse button and move it, I'll sort of orbit around this center point. If I scroll, I'll zoom. It's a lot like Unity. And if I hold Shift and then hold the center mouse button down, I can pan around. Some of these controls are also available up in this corner. So this is new in this version of Blender, this kind of gizmo. There's a similar thing in Unity. So if I want to view my scene from the top, I can click on this Z. And now I'm looking straight down in an orthographic or isometric point of view. I can click X and look at it side on. So usually Y, forward along this green axis, is what we consider forward for things like characters and vehicles. And Z is up and X is left and right. So there's also an option to toggle between an orthographic or perspective view. So just to give you a sense, if I make copies of this box, Shift D, X, there we go. And I'll show you how to do everything right now that I'm doing right now later. But so you can see these boxes are appearing to get smaller as they go towards the horizon line. If I switch to my orthographic view here with this grid button, now they are all the same size going off into the horizon, and they're all lined up like that. But I'm going to go ahead and delete these. Okay. So how did I do all that stuff I just did? So to start with, usually when I'm working in Blender on models for a game or something, I don't really need a light or a camera. I might leave the light in actually, but I can go ahead and get rid of this camera. I'm not rendering any animation in Blender at all. So I can delete that by hitting the X key and then left clicking. Oh, that's annoying. Go away. So that was the X key to delete. I can just click on this box. And so let's say I want to move this box around. So there's a few different options. There's the move tool here, which if I click that, it creates these gizmos around my box. So if I grab one of these arrows and click, I can move it along that axis. If I click on this plane, this blue plane, it will move it only along that axis as well. So it's a little hard to tell looking at it from different points of view, but this blue box that I'm clicking on moves it along the ground. This red one, if I clicked it, would move it along the Y axis and the Z axis. like that. So yeah, that's a pretty convenient way to move things. I like to use keyboard shortcuts when I'm working in Blender. In previous versions, they didn't actually have all these nice icons around, but it's pretty fast. So to grab and move an object, it's just the G key, and then I can move it around. And you can see it's a little unpredictable if I do that. It moves it based on where I'm looking from, sort of. But I can use all these same constraints with the G key. So if I want to constrain it along the x-axis, I can press G and then X, and now I'm sliding along the x-axis. If I want to tell it to move in any direction except for the x-axis, so along this plane, I can press G and then Shift X, and now I'm moving in that plane. And you can see I'm stuck on the x-axis, so G, Shift X, and now I can't. I can move up and down, I can move forward and back, but I can't move left and right with this constraint on. Same applies for other orientations. If I wanted to move on the ground plane, it'd be G, Shift Z, and now it's not going up and down, it's just going on this plane. Okay, so I'm gonna hit undo a bunch of times. We have rotate. Oops, I have to select the cube. With the rotate tool selected, you can see I have this gizmo to spin stuff around. I could also use the keyboard shortcuts for this, so that's R to rotate, and then if I want to rotate around the Z axis, it's R. I type R and then Z, and then I can move my cursor, and it's rotating around that axis. I even can rotate in an extremely controlled way. If I know I want to rotate my box by 30 degrees around the Z axis, I type R Z 30. You can see it just did that all for me, and I hit enter, and now it's been rotated. There's a scale tool, which I can use to scale stuff, right? Yeah, and I think, yeah, so if you kind of click on the circle around it rather than one of these little handles, it scales the whole thing uniformly. And then this gives you all the options all at once, which is a lot. And measure and annotate, we won't worry about these for now. Okay, so anyway, that's kind of an overview of how to move things, delete things, and look around in Blender.